Where the hell do you think you're going? My truck rolled to a dead stop, dust swirling around the tires, as three black SUVs blocked my own driveway like a border checkpoint in a war zone. A man in a neon vest, looking like he'd been waiting all day for a chance to yell at someone, strutted forward, chin high, clipboard in hand, and barked out, "This road is closed. Community inspection in progress. You are not authorized to enter." I just sat there for a second, hands gripping the steering wheel, giving him a slow, tired smile that didn't reach my eyes. "This is my property, son." Before he could answer, before he could launch into whatever speech he'd rehearsed in the mirror that morning, a cold, steady voice drifted from the shadows of the tree line behind them. It was a voice that sounded like gravel grinding on steel. "You boys got about 5 seconds to move those toys," the voice said, "before this turns into a real bad day." That was Marcus. And for the first time all day, I knew everything was going to be all right. But to understand how I ended up in a standoff at the end of my own driveway with a faux military squad of homeowners association volunteers, you have to go back about 10 hours. It started as an ordinary morning, the kind you don't think twice about until it's gone, the kind you replay in your head later and whisper, "If only I'd stayed home." The sun wasn't even all the way up yet when I stepped outside, my boots sinking into the cool dirt of Blackwood Creek. A faint fog floated above the trees, and the lake behind the house looked like a sheet of hammered silver. Peaceful, quiet, and most importantly, mine. I had a list of chores sitting on the passenger seat of my old Ford. Pick up a new hydraulic hose for the log splitter, grab some decking screws from the hardware store, maybe swing by the feed store for the dogs if I had time. Nothing special, just a standard 10-hour run into town and back. Before leaving, I stood on the porch for a moment, sipping the last of my coffee. If there's one thing you learn from living on private land your whole life, it's this: silence means everything is where it should be. And that morning, the silence was perfect. No trucks, no tourists, and definitely no HOA golf carts humming like mosquitoes on wheels. Everything felt normal. I didn't know that up the ridge, behind those expensive stone-faced houses in the serene, gated community of Pine Valley Estates, a group of people in iron polo shirts were holding what they called an emergency coordination meeting. I didn't know they had a plan with my name written on it. I didn't know they were waiting for the exact moment my taillights disappeared down the county road. All I knew was that I had places to be. As I walked to the truck, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Hey brother, you home later? Swinging by to drop off that water gauge." Damn, I told him to come by this week, and I'd forgotten the exact day. I texted back, running into town. "Be back around sunset. You can still swing by if you want, gates unlocked." I didn't think another second about it. Marcus wasn't the type who needed an appointment. He was force recon, retired, a man who could blend into a brick wall if he wanted to. If he showed up early, he'd just wait on the porch or leave the gauge by the door. And honestly, knowing he might be around made the place feel even safer. Turns out, that text might have been the only thing that saved my entire property from being dismantled piece by piece. As I pulled down the dirt road, kicking up a small cloud of dust behind me, the world looked so normal it was almost funny. No signs of trouble. But 10 hours is a long time. Long enough for people with too much power and not enough sense to decide they could turn my land into their personal project. Long enough for a group of HOA leaders to convince themselves they had authority they didn't have. Funny thing about peace, you never notice the last moment you had it until it's gone. I didn't find out about the HOA meeting until much later, but when I finally saw the footage Marcus captured, and we'll get to that, it painted the picture clear as day. While I was driving out of town, the leadership team of Pine Valley Estates was gathering around a long folding table in Patricia Vance's garage. You could tell they thought it was a real command center. Clipboards everywhere, a box fan buzzing in the corner, coffee pots, maps of the lake pinned up with thumbtacks like they were planning the invasion of Normandy. Except there wasn't a single military bone among them. Patricia opened the meeting like she always did, chin raised, voice rehearsed, acting like she was leading a nation through a crisis. "We have a problem," she said, tapping her pen on the table. "It's the owner of the shoreline parcel. He refuses cooperation." Cooperation. Patricia used that word a lot. Every time she said it, she meant submission. A short man with a receding hairline. "Let's call him Gary," muttered. "The board agrees. His land is strategically positioned. It's the closest access point for most of our homeowners. We need to establish community pathways. We've tried being nice, another lady chimed in. He keeps putting up signs. He's making it personal, Patricia snapped. He's blocking shared lake access. One of the committee men, a younger guy who looked a little nervous, whispered, "But isn't it private property?" Patricia turned her stare on him so sharply he didn't say another word for the rest of the meeting. See, this wasn't about rights or fairness or lake access. It was about pride. Patricia Vance didn't like the idea that someone, anyone, could say no to her. And when someone like that feels disrespected, they don't talk it out. They escalate. We need to show him, Patricia said, leaning forward, that the community has authority. Then she rolled out her plan. A poster board with bullet points, images printed from Google Maps, notes scribbled with red marker. She tapped the map with the back of her pen. "We'll conduct a community safety assessment," she announced. The room nodded like that meant something. "We'll document violations. And we'll film every interaction. If he argues, we can show he's hostile." "What if he calls the sheriff?" the secretary asked. Patricia waved the question off like a fly. "Sheriff Miller can't enforce private disputes. And besides, he's usually too busy. As long as we keep it civil, no one's getting arrested." She was wrong on both counts. Spectacularly wrong. Then she unveiled the final piece. "We set up a checkpoint on his driveway." A gasp went around the room. Not because it was illegal, but because it was bold. Patricia smiled wider. "We show the community we're serious. We show him his behavior affects everyone. We do it while he's gone. It's safer that way." They didn't know Marcus would arrive minutes later. They didn't know he'd watch them fumble around my property like wannabe inspectors. They didn't know he'd record everything they touched, everything they dug, everything they tried to install. Patricia wrapped up the meeting with a line that, in hindsight, might be the funniest moment of the whole mess. "Remember, this is a peaceful demonstration of community authority. Stay professional. Stay calm." 10 hours later, 2 of her people would be face down on my gravel, handcuffed, while Patricia screamed into a phone. Professional. Calm. Right. Marcus never rushes. He's the kind of man who steps out of his truck, looks around once, and already knows what's wrong before he says a word. That's why, when he pulled up to the entrance of Blackwood Creek around noon, he stopped mid-step. The dirt wasn't right. It wasn't anything big, just the kind of thing only an outdoorsman would notice. The ground was disturbed in a way it shouldn't be. Fresh tire imprints. Wide ones, too heavy for a ranch truck, too straight for a neighbor's ATV. And footprints. Lots of them. Grouped, scattered, overlapping. A whole cluster of people had walked through the entrance of my land that morning. Marcus crouched, brushing his fingers over the soil. Some steps were fresh, some older. He didn't panic. He didn't swear. He just stood up slowly and looked toward the tree line, eyes narrowing. He walked a little farther down the drive, staying silent. Then he saw it. Something small that didn't belong. A thin survey stake, bright white plastic, jammed awkwardly near the ditch line. A stake I never put there. Clean, sharp, smelling faintly of new hardware store plastic. He followed the trail farther and found a spot of loose earth, like someone had tested a shovel there. Not a real hole, just a few exploratory stabs into my soil. Testing, measuring, preparing. Marcus felt the back of his neck tighten. He moved slowly, circling around the front of the house, always careful to stay behind cover. He wasn't hiding out of fear, he was hiding to gather intel. He checked his phone. No service. Bad timing. He tried to text me, but it didn't go through. So he walked back toward the tree line, found a shaded position with a full view of the driveway and the house, and settled in like a man preparing for a long wait. He didn't have to wait long. It started with the sound, an engine rumbling far off in the trees. Then another. Then the unmistakable crunch of gravel under tires. Marcus shifted slightly behind a cedar tree, raising his phone. A black SUV rolled into view, then a second one, then a third. No markings, no utility logos, just shiny paint and a whole lot of entitlement. The doors opened almost in unison. 6 people stepped out wearing matching neon vests labeled Pine Valley Safety Team. Marcus whispered, "Oh, this is going to be stupid." The group split up, moving with the clumsy coordination of people trying to look official. 2 carried clipboards. One had a tape measure he kept pulling out, but never using. One guy lugged a tote bag full of plastic stakes. And 2 men headed straight toward my electrical pole. Marcus zoomed in with his phone camera. The first man opened the tote bag and pulled out a small gray box. Cheap, unbranded, something bought off Amazon. He held it up. There, he said. Put it here. Make it visible. The second man nodded and began screwing the fake box to my utility pole. Marcus filmed every movement. He caught their voices perfectly. Once this is up, we'll have proof he ignored a hazard notice, one guy said. Patricia says get photos from 3 angles. She wants it to look official. Are the stakes ready for the walkway? Another asked. Yeah, we'll say he blocked a historical path. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. This wasn't trespassing. This was fabrication. Intentional, premeditated setup. And they were doing it while I was gone because they were too scared to do it while I was home. One of the clipboard men turned, scanning the area. His eyes locked on the shape in the trees. Marcus didn't flinch. He waited until the man raised a hand. Sir? Can we help you? Marcus stepped partially out of the shadows, posture harmless, voice calm. Just passing through. The man frowned. This area is under a community inspection. On a private driveway? Marcus asked lightly. The man hesitated. Temporary enforcement authority. Marcus smiled politely. Good luck with that. He turned and walked a few steps back, just enough to appear uninterested, and then quietly slid behind the next tree, hidden again. The HOA team didn't realize they were being documented. They continued setting up fake stakes, taking staged photos, recording rehearsed dialogue. At one point, the lead man, Gary, said, All right, we're good. We reconvene at 5. He should be driving back around then. Marcus felt the nod in his gut twist. There it was. The plan. The ambush. They were building a confrontation on purpose, counting on catching me angry, counting on video they could twist. The group finally packed up and left. Marcus stayed behind, silent as the trees. He looked at the fake hazard box, the stakes, the disturbed ground. He checked his phone again. Still no service. He whispered to himself, Get home, brother. Because this ain't no inspection. This is a trap. And he waited. 2 hours later, the engines returned. This time, they didn't creep. They rolled in with confidence. The neon vests were back, this time with more gear. Traffic cones. Caution tape. A folding barricade. A metal sign that read, Community Safety Enforcement Checkpoint ahead. Set it up exactly like Patricia said, a woman snapped. The men dragged the barricade across the driveway, blocking the entire entrance. Fully. They positioned the cones in a perfect row, then added caution tape on top. Marcus zoomed in. Every angle. Faces. License plates. Gary, the clipboard guy, slapped his palm and barked, Remember, when he pulls up, keep your phones recording. We need proof of hostile escalation. What if he doesn't get angry? A younger guy asked. Oh, he'll get angry, Gary scoffed. Patricia said just keep pushing. Don't let him in. Block the road. Tell him there's a safety violation. If he touches a cone, that's aggression. Then came the part that made Marcus's stomach drop. All right, where's the kid? Gary clapped his hands. A teenager stepped out of the SUV, holding a neck brace. He looked bored. Do I really have to wear this? Patricia said it'll help reinforce the injury claim. The woman scolded. Put it on. Marcus zoomed in, his voice dropping to a whisper. You've got to be out of your damn minds. They were staging an injured witness. Preparing a scene. Building a narrative. Okay, Gary directed. You two stand in front. Kid, sit on the cooler and look sad. If he tries to drive around, we block the ditch with the ATV. Marcus shifted and zoomed. There it was. A red ATV parked sideways across the narrow ditch. They had fully blocked the entrance. Marcus checked the time. The sun was getting low. I'd be pulling down the gravel road any minute. He raised his phone again, pressed record, and whispered, All right, Elias. Come home. Let's end this circus. The sky had turned the color of warm copper by the time I turned off the highway. 10 hours in town had drained me dry. All I wanted was my porch. But when I rounded the last bend, my foot slid off the gas. 3 SUVs. Barricades. Cones. Caution tape. A sign that said do not proceed. What in the hell? I muttered. 6 HOA members in neon vests milled around. 3 had phones pointed at me. 2 stood in front of the barricade, chests puffed out. And there was the teenager, sitting on a cooler, wearing a neck brace that was 3 sizes too big. I eased the truck forward until my bumper was inches from the first cone. Gary marched up and slapped his palm against my hood. Stop. This area is restricted. I lowered the window halfway. Restricted? This is my driveway. Sir, he shouted, too loudly for the distance. You cannot enter your property until this safety assessment is complete. My property, I repeated slowly. You are blocking my property. Sir, remain calm, he said, glancing at the cameras. Behind him, someone whispered, he's escalating. I hadn't moved an inch. We have detected a hazardous utility violation within your perimeter. Gary squared his shoulders. Until we complete our inspection, the community is liable if you enter. Please pull your vehicle aside and wait for authorization. Authorization? I asked. On a driveway my grandfather carved out 50 years ago. And what if I don't? He smiled like he'd been waiting for that line. Sir, refusal to cooperate will be documented as. Don't say another word to him. The voice cut through the air like a blade. The HOA crew stiffened. Gary's face twisted. You again? Gary snapped. I thought I told you to move along earlier. Marcus stepped out from the shade of the tree. He moved with that slow, quiet confidence that makes loud people very nervous. He approached the side of my truck first. You good? He asked me. Not yet, I said. But I'm getting there. Marcus looked back at the HOA crew. I moved along, he said quietly. Then I moved back. You're interfering with an act of assessment. Gary barked, his volume rising with panic. Marcus didn't respond. He just stepped closer to the cones, hands relaxed. This isn't an inspection, he said. This is a blockade. And you built it on private land. The cameras rolled. The kid in the neck brace swallowed hard. Marcus stepped forward until every man in those fake vests could feel the ground shift. He planted himself in the middle of the gravel road. Move your vehicles, he said, quiet as a church pew. You've got 5 seconds. They froze. 5. Just hold your ground, Gary hissed. 4. 3. That did it. Panic snapped through them. Back it up. Back it up. Doors slammed. Reverse lights blinked. SUV tires spit gravel. Within seconds, they had jerked their vehicles back just far enough to leave a narrow lane. Marcus didn't smile. He just stepped aside. Roads open. I eased the truck forward. 5 feet. 10. You could feel the resentment radiating off them. And then, the moment hit. Gary, the swaggering little field commander, suddenly snapped. He sprinted forward. Hey, stop. You can't go through. Before I could put the truck in park, he charged straight at Marcus and shoved both hands into his chest. Hard. A mistake with a lifespan shorter than a firecracker. Marcus's right hand hooked the man's wrist. His left slid under the elbow. Hips turned. Whump. Gary lifted clean off the ground and crashed onto the gravel so hard the dust rose like smoke. His clipboard skittered across the road. The rest of the patrol froze. Marcus didn't advance. He just stood ready. Don't put your hands on people, he said softly. Especially not the wrong one. Gary wheezed in the dirt. He attacked me. That's assault. Buddy, Marcus shook his head. You shoved me. And your cameras caught every second. Then we heard it. A siren. Low, steady, getting closer. Patricia said she'd handle the sheriff. Gary stammered, face draining of color. Marcus chuckled. Looks like she ran out of magic tricks. Sheriff Miller's cruiser rolled into view a moment later. He stepped out, adjusting his belt, scanning the scene. The cones. The fake vests. The grown man crying in the dirt. Impersonating an officer, Miller muttered. Blocking a county road. Assault. He looked straight at Gary. You boys really woke up this morning wanting to go to jail, didn't you? Nobody breathed. Sheriff, Marcus said, stepping forward. Before you deal with them, there's something you need to see. He unlocked his phone and held it out. Miller took it. The quiet on the ridge went surgical. Miller watched the first video, the HOA crew installing the fake utility box. Then the second clip, the crew coaching the teenage boy on how to fake a neck injury. Then the third, the rehearsal of the confrontation. When Miller looked up, his face was hard. Jesus H. Christ. He turned to the HOA crew. You idiots weren't just harassing him. You were staging evidence. Creating false reports. Tampering with utility structures. That's fraud. That's conspiracy. And that is a felony. Sheriff, we didn't mean, one of them squeaked. Patricia said it was just a safety demonstration. Boy, Miller snapped. If you say the word Patricia, like she's a legal guardian angel one more time, I'll cuff you just for being stupid. He called for backup. Dispatch, I need 2 units and the DA's investigator. We've got probable cause for coordinated fraud. Gary, still on the ground, tried to speak. You can't. Randall Garrison, Miller said, looking at Gary's ID badge. You're under arrest for battery, obstruction, and your role in this scam. All of you are being detained. And then, we heard her. The high-pitched whine of a luxury golf cart. Patricia Vance came flying around the bend, sunglasses oversized, lips pressed tight. She slammed to a stop, dust washing over her. What is going on here? She demanded. Miller finished cuffing Gary, then turned slowly. Afternoon, Ms. Vance. You picked a hell of a time to show up. What did you do to them? She snapped at me. Ma'am, I didn't do a thing, I said. They said you attacked them, that your friend assaulted my officer. Miller stepped forward. Ma'am, these aren't officers. And what they did today was illegal. We were conducting a compliance operation. Patricia yelled. On adjacent properties. He is blocking a community zone. Nope, I said. It's private property. That's not the point, she shrieked. Yes, Marcus said. It actually is. Patricia's eyes narrowed at Marcus. You're the one from earlier. You interfered. I told them to move their cars so they didn't get run over, Marcus said. Sheriff, arrest them, she demanded. They hurt my son. She pointed at the kid in the neck brace. Miller didn't blink. Your son shoved him first? No. Your son wasn't even involved in the shove. Your son is wearing a prop. We have video of your team rehearsing the injury. Patricia went white. Those are out of context. Lady, Marcus chuckled. The only context was how to fake a neck injury. Miller stepped closer to her. Ma'am, staging an injury for a false claim is fraud. Tampering with utilities is criminal. What your board did wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a coordinated plan. You don't understand. Patricia screamed, the meltdown finally hitting. This community depends on me. I keep order. He is ruining everything. He thinks he can just hoard the shoreline. Ma'am, step away, Miller warned. No, I won't let him take our. Miller reached for his handcuffs. Click. Ms. Vance, turn around. You can't arrest me. I can detain you pending investigation, he said. She shrieked. She cried. She threatened. But she got into the back of the cruiser just the same. The next morning, we were in court. Not criminal court yet. That was coming. But an emergency civil hearing to strip the HOA of its authority over my land. Patricia walked in wearing a beige suit, looking brittle. My lawyer, Meredith, played the videos for the judge. The fake box installation. The neck brace rehearsal. The assault on Marcus. The judge, a stone-faced man named Hardwick, stared at Patricia like she was a bug. Ms. Vance, he said, please tell me you didn't authorize this. I delegated enforcement, she stammered. Your Honor, Meredith said. We have emails from Ms. Vance instructing her board to pressure the owner until he cracks and create recordable violations, even if we have to establish them ourselves. Judge Hardwick slammed his hand on the desk. Effective immediately, Patricia Vance is removed as president. The HOA is prohibited from contacting the plaintiff. And due to the gravity of this evidence, this court is issuing a criminal referral to the county attorney. The gavel hit. Patricia slumped. By Thursday, the criminal charges were filed. Impersonation of a public official. Conspiracy to defraud. Tampering with utility infrastructure. Filing false reports. Sheriff Miller told the press, this wasn't a property dispute. This was an organized effort to intimidate a private citizen using fraudulent authority. The HOA imploded. The state auditor arrived and found a mess of financial irregularities in the HOA books. The board dissolved. The neighborhood signage was torn down. A year later, the lake is quiet. Patricia sold her house and moved away. The guard shack is empty. John, Marcus, still comes by. We sit on the porch, drink coffee, and watch the sun come up over the water. You hear they're auctioning off the HOA furniture? He asked me last Sunday. Could buy Patricia's desk. Firewood, I said. We laughed. The wind shifted, carrying the silence I'd fought for. No engines. No fake uniforms. Just water, pines, and peace. The real kind. So, tell me in the comments, have you ever had a neighbor try to claim your property? Or an HOA that thought they were above the law? I want to hear your stories. And if you enjoyed watching a tyrant get taken down by a Marine and a cell phone camera, hit that like button and subscribe. Stay safe, know your rights, and never let them block your driveway.